Hey, this is Andrew Brown. In this video, we're going to take a look at Azure AI Search. So this service in particular is interesting because it can be used for traditional full text search, but you can also use it specifically for generative AI for your RAGs. And basically all a RAG is just a means to retrieve information to make your LLMs a little bit smarter based on contextual information. So we can deploy Azure AI Search via the UI here. We should really work with it programmatically because that's probably a better way to work with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do what we've always been doing here. I'm going to launch up our AI managed compute here. And there are quick starts, and we can try to utilize these as there's many ways here, but there's also examples here at Azure Search vector samples. So let's see if we can just get through it programmatically because that's really the way you're going to use it. And here they might have better coding examples where when I was going through this, basically you're making like posts and curls and they didn't make this super friendly to use. So we'll see what we can do there. So I'm just going to wait for that to spin up and I'm going to click into this one and we'll see how far we can follow through this by bringing it into our environment and make tweaks along the way, okay? All right, so our environment is running. Let's go ahead and open that in Jupyter Labs. So we'll open that up there, give it a moment. Okay, and we'll go ahead and hit just, well, I could have built it there, it doesn't really matter. And so I'm gonna go back here to step in our AI folder and we'll go ahead and make a new folder. And this one is gonna be called Azure AI Search. And in here, I guess this one here is basic vector workflow. I'm not sure why there are two here. It's a requirements.txt file. What's in here? Anything interesting? Okay, well that's interesting. We'll go back to this one here. And so from here, this will just be, it's basic vector workflow. So I'm gonna go here and make a new notebook and call this one we'll choose 130 as per usual, and we'll rename this. And this is going to be basic vector workflow. Okay. So we'll scroll on down to here. Here we have this, which is going to bring in those requirements. So I suppose that is one way that we can do it. I would rather just kind of bring them all in here and just do a pip install. So I'm going to go here and just paste them in and do pip install this. And yeah, I'll do it for each one. I'm not sure if we could string those together. It depends on how you want to do it. I'd rather just have it in here so that I can see it. That looks good to me. I'm going to go ahead and add this and drag it on above. And we'll go to Markdown. Okay, and just so that you don't have to look for this file, I'm going to go ahead and link it here so we know that we are working with this one here. So I'll say resources here and paste that in. And just in case we need this as a reference, I'm going to put this in here as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and see if those install without issue. I don't think we're going to run into any problems. And we will wait for that to complete. I imagine we're going to have to probably create an Azure AI resource. But let's go through this and see what's going on here. So we're going to create an index schema, load sample data from a local folder, embed the documents in memory using Azure Open AI's text embedding 3 large model, index the vector and non-vector fields with Azure AI Search, run a series of vector and hybrid queries, including metadata filtering and hybrid. So, you know, I guess you can do like traditional search with Azure AI Search, but most likely what we're probably going to use it for is a RAG. So getting experience with vectorizing things makes more sense because that's how we're probably going to work with it. So let's just go through it and see what we're doing here. So what are our prerequisites? We need an Azure AI Open subscription. We need a deployment of the text embedding 3 large model. So you must have an Azure OpenAI service name and an API key. Azure AI Search any tier, but choose a service that has sufficient capacity for your vector index. We recommend basic or higher. Okay, so, I'm just thinking about this here for a second. It seems like we're going to need Azure OpenAI, and we're also going to need to have the embedding model deployed. So when we use Azure OpenAI, and we'll probably do this in another video, but when we launch it up, we have to request models, and sometimes it takes time to get access to those models. I think that's more of an issue in Azure AI Studio, not necessarily Azure OpenAI Studio. So I guess what we'll do is we will launch that up, and we have Azure OpenAI. Do we have to launch the OpenAI Studio? Not necessarily. So let's just go ahead and launch Azure OpenAI. So we'll go here. Yep. And I'm going to just make a new group here. This will be for Azure OpenAI. Or sorry, Azure AI Search. Okay. And from here, I'm just going to do everything in West just to be very consistent. And this will be OpenAI West and some numbers. We will choose standard, as that's all I can choose here today. For network, we'll leave it alone. We'll go ahead and create this resource. And so there is the Azure OpenAI Studio. That's when you have like an interface to work with. If we're working with things programmatically, we'd probably rather just work with OpenAI directly. So that resource is being created, so we'll have to wait for its completion. But it says we need Azure AI Search, so we're going to have to create one of those. Recommend basic or higher. Enable semantic ranking if you want to run hybrid and semantic ranking. I probably do want to do this because semantic ranking is something that is extremely useful and is the preferred way of searching. As far as I understand semantic ranking, it is an additional layer, an extension of Azure AI, but it's not a concept specific to Azure AI Search. But the idea is that it takes back your results and then they rank them, and so that way you get better results. Hopefully that is a good description. If not, it will be in the lecture content. But this is deployed, so before we do Azure AI Search, let's open this up and see what we have as our options. And so here, what I'm looking for is the ability to deploy models. So here it's suggesting we could open this in Azure OpenAI Studio. I don't want to do that here today. I want to go to Manage Deployments. And so we'll go here. It said something back here. I missed the text before I click that. It says, model deployment features have moved to the Azure OpenAI Studio. Okay, so you have to do it in the OpenAI Studio. Interesting. I personally like to make Azure OpenAI Studio first and then create Azure OpenAI, but I guess maybe the order doesn't matter so much here. And so we want to deploy a model. Which model do we want to deploy? This is going to be the text embedding 3 large embedding model. I'm not really certain about what the cost is on this. So if you're really concerned about cost, you could just watch me do all this stuff. We might want to look up pricing here and see if we can find it for Azure. Okay. And I'm going to look for that model. And so it's saying 1,000 per tokens. I'm not sure how many tokens we're using, but it doesn't look too bad. So I'm going to go over to, back over to here. And so we want to deploy a model. Is it a fine-tuned model? I think that's a model that we have fine-tuned, but let's go ahead and click into here and see if it's just a base model. And so I'm going to paste the name in here and see if we can find it this way. And there it is. Now understand that if this is your first time deploying a model, you might have to request access before you can do that. So like what I did is I went to the model catalog, and when I clicked into here, it might have said like, hey, submit this so that you get access to it. That's something I had to do. And I had to fill in a form, and then that form said it would get back in 48 hours, and then I checked like a week later and then I had access to it. So understand that you may not be able to do this right away, or you might have a serious obstacle doing this. Also understand that certain models are only available in certain areas. That's why I'm working with US West, because I know that reliably has models here. But anyway, we can see we have access to all these. So that is fine. Let's go back over to our deployments. And I'm going to deploy a model. And that, again, I'm going to choose this, and it's going to be the large here. So we'll go ahead and confirm that. And so that is one thing we have to do, and we'll let that work in the background. Azure AI Search, so that's another resource we'll have to go ahead and create. So I'm going to I've lost the tab here, so I'm going to just have to open this up again, portal.azure.com. And I'm going to have to go here and go back to the Azure AI services. And I'm going to spin up Azure AI Search. So we'll go ahead and create that. And so I'm going to choose the one here that is for Azure AI Search. I'm going to call this one Azure AI Search. And I got the name. If you have to put numbers on there, do that. Notice I'm doing West US. We have a few pricing options. Let's take a look here. And so I do not want standard. I'm going to go with basic. I do not feel like paying that amount of money. But if you need to do free, you can do that. But I'm going to do basic because that's what it's recommending. And I believe that this is not like a monthly cost you incur. It's based on consumption, right? So I'm just going to go back here and take a look here. So Azure AI Search pricing. And so you can see here it's 11 cents per hour. So, if you're not comfortable with this, you can just stick with the regular one. But I'm thinking that the reason why I need to go with basic is that there might be something that I cannot do at any other level. So that's something that, I'm just considering there. We'll go ahead and select that. And so we have all these things selected. We'll go ahead and go next. And here you can see it says $75, one replica. I do not need a whole lot of stuff. I'm going to keep it at the base. And we'll go ahead and hit review and create. There we go. So that resource is created. I'm going to go back over to here and check if my model's been deployed. The model's not available in the selected Azure OpenAI resource. Model availability. Why not? So now we've already ran into an issue. And, okay. So we have this here. And is it maybe the region? Okay, so the region we're in West US. And it's not available in West US. So it looks like we actually have to do everything in a specific region. So it's available in Canada East. It's available in UK South. It's available in East US. So I guess this time I'll switch to East US. I did not expect that to be an issue. So what I'll have to do, it's a bit annoying, but I'm going to have to go back here because if that's the case, I want to make sure they're in the same region. It might not matter, but I just don't want to have these issues. So I'm not going to create the Azure AI Search right away. We're going to go back over to Azure OpenAI. We're going to delete this resource, as that clearly is a failure in this case. Delete. And we'll say delete. And we'll create a new one here. And so I'm dropping this down, and we'll choose Azure AI Search. And this one will be East US. So we'll say AZ OpenAI East. Put some numbers here, and we'll stick standard. We'll hit next. We'll go next. We'll go next. And we will go ahead and create this. We get a moment here. Excellent. So that's going to proceed to create that. And so I think we should really wait till we can get the model deployed before we do the AI search. I believe we'll probably also have to create some storage account. Maybe that will get indirectly created for us. I'm not sure. But we'll find out here once this is done deploying. All right, so that's deployed. Let's go over to our resources here. And we'll go to model deployments and manage deployments. And of course, it's going to open it up in the AI Studio, but this time we might have an easier time. I'm checking the model catalog, just making sure I have access to these. Sometimes it changes based on where you are. We'll go over to deployments. I'm going to deploy a model, and we want the text embeddings large. Okay, so we'll go ahead and confirm that. And I think this time, so we have some options here. Standard deployment, no other option. One, no other option here. Current Azure OpenAI. Token count, that seems fine. Version 2 seems fine. Don't know much about these settings, but looks pretty straightforward. So we'll launch that. Now we're in good shape. Let's go back over to here. So it says, any tier, but choose a service that has sufficient capacity for your vector index. We recommend basic or higher. Enable semantic ranking if you want to run hybrid and semantic ranking. I definitely do. Is there any additional pricing with those? There is, but it says the first 1,000 requests are free and $1 per request. So this is now available. That's good. We're going to go back over to here. And I'm going to go over to Azure AI Search. And we're going to create this. And this time I'm going to make it an East US to match where our other one is. This is going to go into the Azure AI Search here. We'll say Azure AI Search East. See if we can deploy it in the East. It might work across regions, but I don't know. So I'm just going to keep it easy here today. So I'm looking for East. Where are you, East? East US. Change it, and we're going to go to basic. Again, if you want to do free, you can do free. I'm going with basic here today, just in case. We'll go ahead and hit review and create. It's going to be like 11 cents per hour. It's not going to take us an hour to do this. If it does, I mean, that's the worst case cost we're going to have here. We're going to deploy that resource. I didn't see any options as we were setting that up for re-ranking search. Did I maybe miss those settings? I'm not really sure. So, oh, it's deployed. Okay. So then where is this re-ranking option? So I'm going to go to properties here. Maybe settings. Semantic ranker. Here it is. So it looks like we already have it enabled. So there's nothing we have to do to turn it on. It already is turned on. That is excellent. We'll go back over to here, Azure Search Vector Python Sample. Okay. So enable semantic ranking, already enabled. We'd use Python 3.11. We're using 3.10 here today, but you know, it's what was available to us. So that's totally fine. Which is interesting because down here it's saying 3.10 or later. Well, that's fine. We're on 3.10. And so we need to load in those. We already did that, right? So I'm going to drag this on over here. And so that's in good shape. We might need to restart the kernel. I'm just going to do that anyway. They usually suggest that when you do those installs there. So I'm going to do that so we don't have any issues. And so let's go ahead and grab these part by part and try to figure out what's going on here. So the first thing is we have a dot file. We have Azure Identity. We have Azure Core Credentials. And then we're importing the OS. Okay, that makes sense. It looks like we're loading a dot file. I don't see a dot file in here, so take environment variables from the env. Okay, so I guess it's suggesting here that we could create them, or we could just set them here. So the following variables from the env file are used in this notebook. Okay, well, I mean, this would be nice because we haven't solved our env issue yet, and if there is a way to do that, I would love to do it this way. So I'm going to go ahead and grab all this stuff here. And the idea is it's going to load those environment variables. So I'll just make a new file here called .env. Well, that's what it's called. Rename env. Rename .env. Okay, well, that's not going to work. So we'll delete that out, and I suppose them doing this is kind of pointless. I'm just going to take that out. And so here are environment variables it's suggesting. So we need the search service endpoint and this stuff, and so we need to fill it out. So Azure Search Service Endpoint. Okay, so we're going to go over to our overview, and I'm looking for that endpoint. I'm thinking it's this URL over here, so I'll go ahead and grab that. And so we're going to paste that on in here. Okay. Now remember that if you're working in a repo that is tied to GitHub or whichever, make sure you do not commit that stuff. Okay, so here next we have our credentials for the Azure Search admin key. Azure Search admin key. So I'm going to go to keys here. I'm going to just assume it's under keys. Looks like we have API keys. We have primary admin key. Let's go grab that one. Do not share your keys with anybody. I'm sharing here with you today because it's okay, because I am an instructor and I will make sure I do not get exposed here. Okay? So we'll do that. Then we have the Azure Search, Search Index. So the name we want to call it. I think in this script, it's going to programmatically create all these things where we could just do click ops to do it, but we're going to do it the full way here. We have our Azure Open API endpoint. So we're going to go over to OpenAI. And I'm going to go into here. And we want this endpoint. So we have keys and endpoints. Sometimes it's just called keys. Sometimes it's endpoint. We'll go over to here and grab that as well here. That's really interesting. Now it's making me second guess the search compute, which apparently I closed by accident. So I want to go back there and just make sure that I grabbed the correct endpoint. I'm pretty sure I did. And yeah, it doesn't say like keys and endpoint. It's just keys, right? So we just have to kind of infer where things are. Okay. I don't think we need that tab anymore. And so that's set. Now the next thing is the Azure Open AI key. So we're going to go back to wherever that is. This is Azure OpenAI, yep. So I'm going to grab that key, come back over to here, and we are going to paste that in. Whoops. We're going to paste that in here. There we go. Then we have our Azure OpenAI embedding deployment. So we deployed that model, and it was called this, so we're going to stick with that. Then we have the embeddings dimensions. I don't know what that means per se, but we're going to stick, like, I mean, I understand what embedding dimensions are, but don't fully know what we should dial that into, but we're going to choose 1024. The embedding model name, which is technically true. And I think we just stuck with whatever the deployment name was. So we had the option to change it. I did not change it. I just stuck with the same thing. Then we have the Azure OpenAI version. I'm not sure if this has changed. I'm used to AWS where things do not change very often. So I am hoping that that is still new. I'm going to go to overview. Maybe we might see that information here somewhere. Don't see that. Let's go to JSON. Sometimes that information is in JSON here. So I'm just carefully looking for that information. I do not see it. So fingers crossed that we are using the correct one. This one doesn't look super old. It's just a few months ago or a month ago. So I'm pretty certain that this is in good shape. So let's run this. No problems here. Let's run this. And so all of our environment variables are set. That's a lot of environment variables, but that's okay. So the first thing we'll want to do is we want to create an embedding. So read your data, generate OpenAI embeddings, and export to a format to insert into your Azure AI Search Index. So the question is, what kind of data? Because I don't necessarily have any data here. And here it says, it goes up 2 directories into here, and then it goes into sample data, which doesn't seem to be correct. So maybe it's sample data. Here it is. The sample data is data and then text sample. So this is the data that they're suggesting that we utilize. So I'm going to go to raw here. I'm going to grab this data, and I'm going to go over to here. I'm just going to make a new file. Call this data JSON. Okay, and then I just want to paste it in here. Hello, I just want to paste the data in. Okay, so that's not going to work there. I'm going to delete this. What I'll do is just use any text editor you have. I'm just doing this off screen here, okay? And I'm just doing this in VS Code, so find any text editor you have and just save that file. I'm going to save mine to my desktop here. Again, doing this off screen, data.json. And I'm going to upload that. I'm going to press this upload button from my desktop, bring in that data JSON file I saved. I'll be back in just a moment. All right, there we go. So that has now been uploaded. And we'll go back here because we kind of lost our instructions. This is where we were working within. So we can go back here. And so we'll go back down to our code. We'll look at the create embedding section, which is what we're on. So we have more imports. I don't like importing than importing again, but that's totally fine. So we'll just do these kind of separately. It's not how I would do it. I would place everything at the top and just get it all the way. And actually, I'm going to do that. I don't like just importing randomly like that. So we'll do this. And then let's see what we have here. So we have the OpenAI credentials, and we're grabbing the default credentials. Here we are providing this. Okay. And I mean that .env, if we go back to this here for a second, this .env are used in this notebook. So I also kind of wonder if there were environment variables here that are just going to get automatically picked up by the default Azure credentials. So I'm not 100% certain about that, but I have a feeling that this is going to error out on this. And then over here we have our, I guess that's just defaulted, which is fine. So I'm going to run this and see if we get an error. I was expecting an error. Maybe we will have an error later on, or maybe we're fine. I don't know. So that is fine. The next thing is the client. So we'll go here. And we have this. Where's this coming from? Oh, up here, the deployment model. So these are all things defined before, so that's good. We'll hit that. That's good so far. And then we have generate the embeddings. Okay. So again, just grabbing these bit by bit. I like things to be a lot more modular like this, so this is the way I like to do it. I'm taking all of this out here, and this is going to be data JSON. If we just slowly walk through the path, then we can debug this a lot easier. It's just the way I prefer to do it. Okay, so that's looking good so far. And then what it looks like it's doing is we are extracting certain data out. So if we open up this data JSON file and look at it, we have title, content, category. So it is going here and it's iterating through all the titles and grabbing them, and iterating through the contents and grabbing them. And then it's saying create embeddings for the titles, for the title responses. And then we have the data, and those are being embedded. Then we have the content response and content embeddings. Okay, so that looks good to me. What does that mean? I don't know. It just means the way it wants it to be structured, okay? So generate embeddings for the titles and contents. So then we're enumerating out over all of our items. Or no, it's our input data, which is up here, the raw data that we loaded, the JSON data. And we are now replacing we're adding to our JSON data the title vector and content vector. So we've generated vectors or embeddings for the title and content. And I guess it kind of makes sense because, like, if you bake embeddings or vectors, it's like if you want to correlate or find based on title or content, that's why we are creating embeddings or vectors per se. That now makes sense. Okay. So I wasn't sure exactly what was going on here, but now I understand. So hit this here. And it's working really hard here. It's using our client to do that. So it's actually going out and creating embeddings using Azure OpenAI. So it's done that. And then we'll do this. And now if we want to inspect this and just take a look at this, I have a feeling we could probably do that. So I'll just look at input data here, like say print input data. And I'm just going to go 0, see if that works. Okay. And so now notice we have a bunch of crazy numbers. I'm assuming that is our vectorized information. Yeah, it is. Okay, great. So that's what it did. All right, so we'll just delete this one here. And again, let's just carefully walk through this. Output embeddings to a doc vector JSON file. So then we're going to maybe get the results of that. Let's take a look here. So it looks like, I'm just going to put it in the current directory here. Yeah, it looks like it's just that data, the same file there, but it's going to have the attached information. So it doesn't like something here, no such file directory. What do you mean no such file directory? Let's just go back here. I'm just going to cheat here and just do like this and see if that works. There we go. And so now it's here. If we open it up, it's probably going to look very similar, but now we have these two additional pieces of information, okay? Our vectorized information. And I'm not sure if like all these numbers correlate to all these words. That might be the case there. Well, that doesn't make sense because the title's not that long, right? So again, I'm not saying I know everything about everything, but all I know is that we vectorized that data. I don't fully understand its data structure, but that's that there. Okay, so now we have our outputted data with our vector data. And so now we need to create our index. So, wow, we have a lot of imports here. Again, I like to put our imports up with our other imports, but just because there's so many here, I'm just going to stick with it here. And I think the reason why there's so much here is that it's implying that there's a lot of ways we can search, and we might do all these types of search. So we'll go ahead and just load that there. So far, so good, no problems. We want to create a search index. So we'll need to create our client. Okay. So we have endpoint and credentials. So I'll run that there. Good. And then we're creating our fields. So if you have an index, think of an index like a table, okay? But it's a table that is ordered and sorted in a way that's optimal for searching, all right? That's the way you can think of an index. And so we're saying we want an ID, a title, a content, a category, title vector, content vector. That's matching our structure from here, right? So we're creating basically a table or an index, if you will, of that structure. Right, but indexes don't necessarily have all the data. It's more like optimal information to find stuff from possibly from your primary table. And so here you can see that we're defining what they are. These are all string, whether this is sortable, filterable, things like that. So pretty straightforward. We're going to go to our next step here. So now it says configure the vector search configuration. So here we're setting up an algorithm. So let's take a look at what this one is here, the HNS-W. Is that the hybrid search? What is that? Oh, well, I'm going to assume it's the same one. So we have hierarchical, navigable, search world. So it's an algorithm that's graph-based for approximate nearest neighbor search techniques used in vector databases. Okay, so it's that crazy thing, maybe. That looks pretty cool. So that is the algorithm it's using. Maybe there are other ones that we can utilize. So just careful looking at this. We have a profile, and then we have the vectorizer. Okay. So maybe this is how it knows how to interpret the vector data. And so we used OpenAI to create the vector data. And maybe we're telling it here to say, hey, use this so that you can understand how to work with our vectorized data. That's what I'm thinking. I'm going to go ahead and run this. And so that is good there. I'm going to go and grab this one next. And I'll paste this in here. And so carefully looking at the semantic configuration. And this is, I guess, if we want to do semantic search, and we definitely want to do semantic or re-ranker, because that is one of the most efficient ways to search in a vector database. And here we can see that we are providing prioritized fields. There's not a whole lot of fields, so I guess we're providing the order. And so then the rest here, we'll just grab the rest here. Put it here, run it. And here it has one issue. First time we ran into an issue here with fields. Saying fields is not defined. Did we miss this somewhere here? Well, we have fields up here. Did I not run this? I didn't. Okay. So I'm just going to rerun this back in order because sometimes the order might matter. And we'll give it a moment. There we go. So now it's saying it's been created. So it's making me think this was for what? Was this creating the index? This whole thing? Yeah. And so I want to go over here and just confirm so we can see what we're doing in Azure AI Search, if that's now there. So we'll go under maybe Search Management, and we'll go to Indexes. And we can see that's the name of it, Vec Test. And if we go into here, it looks like we have, yeah, the search box has changed. Cool. Not a whole lot in here, but we'll go back. Okay, nothing under data sources, nothing under indexers, but we've created our index. What I was hoping to see was the structure there. Maybe we'll go edit JSON, maybe we'll show it here. And so, yeah, so we can see our fields here. It's just not visually shown anywhere else, okay? So far that is good. But have we inserted our data yet? I don't think so. But let's continue on, okay? So, yeah, insert the text and embedding into the vector store. So add the text and metadata from JSON data to the vector store. So we'll grab this next. I told you I don't like to do our imports like this, but that's just how they're doing it, so we're going to stick with it. So upload some documents to the index. So we'll just copy this whole part here. And here I'm going to just take this out because it's just plain here. So we're going to get its output path. It might give us some issues here, so I'm just going to do this again just in case. This just means this the current directory, so we're just kind of cheating there. And then it's going to read the file as a document. And it's going to do search client. And we're going to have a search client. And then we're going to upload the documents, which is just all that JSON data. It doesn't look like we're splitting it. It's just loading them. Just loading the JSON. So let's give that a go. There we go. So far so good. This is not always the case. Like sometimes I'm working with, I'm just saying like, whoa, my head's really angled up here. But yeah, sometimes I'm working with Azure examples and they don't work most of the time, but this one has been pretty good. But I'm thinking the reason why is that it's just more recent. So anyway, let's continue on. So now we have uploaded our documents. Now, can we see where those are? I don't think we would see it here. If we go back into the search here, I mean, I would expect that we'd have to have a data source if we're sourcing data from there. So I'm not sure where it is in the UI. Because the way I understand it is like you have a data source so you connect to it. But that's okay. So here it says search client, upload documents, insert text and embeddings into the vector store. Okay. Well, I want to know the vector store. So give me a second. I'm going to look up where it is. So it says it has a vector store. It's not like CosmoDB or anything particular. It's just part of the service, I guess. So not 100% certain on that one. That's totally fine. Not worried about it. But, you know, just sometimes I like to visually see things. So if you're indexing a very large number of documents, we're not. You can use the Search Index Buffering Center, which is an optimized way to automatically index the docs as it will handle it for your batching. So something that we could have done instead. We are not doing that because I don't feel like we need to do that. And we've already uploaded them, so we're just going to ignore that. So it says perform a vector similarity search. So the idea is that our data is in here. How it's in here, I do not know. I really thought that we'd have to connect a data source, but I guess it's just there. Let's go back here. Click into it. Oh, you know what? I didn't notice this before. There's our fields. There we go. Okay, I was going to the JSON there. Probably like, Andrew, what is wrong with you? I'm sorry, the UI is just hard to look at. So we have that. Cores, I guess if this is external. Our configuration, which we created. And our vector profile. We can't see our data here just yet, but we're just going to continue on here. So let's go back over to here. And so here we can perform a vectorized query. Okay, so let's give it a go. So grab this next. I'm just going to grab this whole section because this has been pretty reliable so far. And I realize my font's a little bit small. I'm going to just jump this up here. I apologize for that entire time having small font. So here we have a pure vector search. So we're providing it text. And then from that query, we're creating an embedding. So I'm assuming that's using the OpenAI way of embedding that data. Okay. And then we provide that embedding. We tell the nearest neighbors, so how many friends or neighbors do we want to look out to? And then we're looking across the content vector. So the vectors are going to match against the vectors, and it's going to return the vector query, which will then allow us to utilize that in our actual search. And then we're going to select this information that we want and print them out. So go ahead and do that. And so there we are getting our results back. So that is very cool. Okay. I still would like to know how we would do it here. Oh, we just write whatever we want. Okay, so this, I was thinking there was like something really complex there, but it seems like we could just, do this as well. We might get similar results. Let's just try this. Search. So we have Azure DevOps Developer Tools. I mean, it's returning everything. Maybe there's like more ways we could filter information here. I don't know. But here you can see way more information. So I guess that's just like a really easy way to find information. Okay. But if we go back to here, it looked like there could have been an easier way to search. No, it doesn't really look like it. That's fine. All right, so let's go back here and just continue on. So clearly we did a vector search, which wasn't too bad. So now we have hold on, this is perform a vector similarity search. So return things that are similar to other things, right? And let's just take a look and see how similar it is. Tools for software development, so Azure DevOps Labs Test. Very clear that is there, and it's giving us a score, how close it is, this one more than the other ones. Perform a vector similarity search using a vectorizable text query. So this example shows a pure vector search using the vectorizable text query. All you need to do is pass in the text and your vectorizer will handle the rest. Okay, so let's grab this and then we'll look at the code and we'll try to see if we can make sense of it, okay? So go here next. So this looks very similar. The only difference is this one says vectorizable text search, and this one says vectorizable query search. And here we have to create the embedding and then do the vector query. But here, it looks like we are saving a step. So that's the only difference that it looks like it's doing. We're getting the exact same results. So yeah. Vectorizable text query. So yeah, I think it's just skipping a step, and so we don't have to use that. Now, we told it earlier that we wanted to use OpenAI's method of vectorizing. So maybe that's what it's doing. Like when we preloaded it earlier, then this one is using that one that we loaded earlier on, okay? So this example shows a pure vector search demonstrating the OpenAI's text embeddings AI-102 multilingual capabilities. So let's take a look here. So the question is, we're not using Ada, we're using the other one. And so this is suggesting that if we use a different language, that it's still going to figure it out. So this might not work because we do not have that library embedded. But I'm going to find out and see what happens, okay? And it still works. But I just don't have confidence if it's using the actual one that we're using. But it's interesting that it can go across languages there. So this is working, supposedly. But could have been just tools was enough for it to know. If we look at these scores, 058, 057, 054. I mean, we're getting the same score, so it must be good. But this here confuses me. So I'm not sure what's going on there. So now we have perform an exhaustive KNN, exact nearest neighbor search. So we'll give that a go. Let's paste that in here. We'll run that. So it's using the vectorizable text search. And, well, what's different? Let's go back here. We see exhaustive equals true. That's the only difference that I see here, is that it's saying exhaustive is true. Oh, well, I guess it is. How you can exhaustively search your vector index regardless of what index you have. Okay, I see. All right. Then we have perform a cross-field vector search. So this example shows a cross-field vector search that allows you to query multiple vector fields at the same time. Note, ensure that the same embedding model was used for the vector fields you decide to query. Okay, so let's grab this one. They're looking a whole lot similar to me, but clearly there are differences here. I'm not that well versed in these type of query things. I am creating lecture slides after these labs. So if I do figure that out, I'll put them in there, and we'll come to this video and we'll already know what it is. At least you will. Me right now, I do not know. So we look at this one here, and we're going to run it, and it works. Let's go back here. Cross-field vector search. So it says cross-field. Allows you to query multiple vector fields at the same time. Ah, okay. So here we're doing multiple fields is what it's telling us. Okay. And our results are a little bit different, way different, but I guess because now it's going across content, it has more to pull from. Or if it was title. So now we have a multi-vector search. So shows a cross-field vector search that allows you to query multiple vector fields at the same time by passing in multiple query vectors. Okay. So now we are vectorizing twice, but one for the title, one for the content. Okay. Let's do that. Let's try this. We'll run that. And I mean, we're getting different results, but it's treating it as one. I'm not sure how it decides between the two, but it does that apparently. Perform a weighted multi-vector search. So give one more weight than the other. Makes sense. So run this. Looks good. Perform a pure vector search with a filter. So this example shows how to apply filters in your index, whether you want to do pre-filtering. So let's take a look here. Where is the filter? So we have vector filter mode. Okay. And then we're just saying pre-filter. All right, but what does that do? That's what I want to know. So it goes here and it says, determines whether or not filters are applied before or after the vector search. Okay. But what is it filtering? Oh, right here. So here's the filter. It says catalog equals developer tools. All right, so there's some query language or some filter language that we can utilize here. And so we'll grab this and we'll run this. We'll take a look. And here it's saying category equals developer tool. So it's filtering for that. Is that what we had in our data? And we did. Okay, so that's interesting. Okay, that's cool. We'll go down here below and we'll look at our next step here. So now we're getting into more interesting things like hybrid search. Before re-ranking search, hybrid search was the one that was really good. So here we will copy this and we'll take a look and see what's happening. So we have the same thing. We're vectorizing this information. We have a query vector. But what makes this a hybrid search? I'll hit run here. Okay. But what makes it hybrid? Because it looks very similar to the other ones. Is it because there's spaces in between here? So I'm not sure. Because that's the only thing that's changing is this, and this looks just like the other ones. But apparently we can weight it. We have a pretty good idea how weighting works, so we're not going to run that one. Semantic hybrid search. Now we're getting into something interesting. So this is the one that's supposed to be really, really good. So let's go copy this. But yeah, I think when I go create the lecture content, I will go figure out what they mean by hybrid search here because I'm not 100% certain. Also, all the other ones previously were hybrid search. So here we're saying what is Azure Search. Maybe that's a spelling mistake and that's intentional. So it's exhaustive equals true. And down below here, we have query type as semantic, and it's using the semantic configuration, which is what we have ours called here. And then we have our semantic answers. Let's go ahead and run that. Semantic answer. Okay. And we have our score down here below. And then the resources here. Okay. Well, that's something. And that's it. Okay, so I'm not saying I understand what all of these searches do, but I will circle back, put in the lecture content, and then I'll sound dumb here, but I'll sound smart in the other area. There's clearly a lot of other things that we can do. Chunking might be something we might be interested in doing. Working with an external data source is something we probably want to do. Let's just take a peek here into this one. I'm not sure if we want to do this. So this one says, demonstrate how to use Azure AI Search advanced query rewriting to improve the relevance of your search. So we'll take a look here and just see what we have. So I'm just trying to see what is different. We have chunking going on here. Okay. So I'm not sure. I might come back here and do another one. Yeah, I think we're going to do another one of these. I'll do it in a separate video here. I just want to take a look at the chunking example here. I'm just going to pause here and make a decision, okay? All right, so this one's kind of interesting because I was looking at the advanced one again, and they're making a query, and then they're feeding into a large language model saying, hey, can you make this query more efficient? And then it's doing that query. I think chunking is something that I think that we probably we could do. But really all it's doing is it's just taking a like a larger file, like a PDF, and you're just breaking it up into parts. So I don't know. I feel like this is good enough. It'd be nice if we used Azure AI Search with a data store. I think that's something that we'll end up doing when we use Azure AI Studio or OpenAI Studio. So I think we're actually done here. And we got some practical experience here with it, so this is fine. I'm going to go up to the top here. I'm going to just clear these out. Nothing super exciting with this one, as clearly we really stuck to the sample for once. I'm going to go here and just clear out these values here so that you know, whoops, that you know that you can't use the same one here. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and just restart the kernel. And I'm going to go ahead and download these files. And so I'm going to go over to our Azure repo. That's github.com, Azure examples. We'll press period here. I'm going to drag them over. And so if you just want to run these and not fiddle around with things, you can absolutely do that. Of course, you don't know that until the end of the video, but that's always the case here. We'll say Azure AI Search. But yeah, I mean, again, it'd be nice if we had a few other things here to do with the AI search, because we obviously going to have data sources, and there's also skill sets. So that's another thing that we could have took a look at. So this is skills that you can add here. But anyway, we do talk about that in the lecture content. I already have slides for that. But yeah, we'll just upload this in place, and then we'll just clean up here and be in good shape. So here I have my Azure AI Search. I'm going to go to my downloads off screen here and drag them on over. These three files. Over here, Azure AI Search. And we will commit and push that. And now that is done. I'm going to go over to our portal here, and I'm going to go into our resource group here. This is our resource group, and these are our two resources, the search and OpenAI. And we'll go ahead and delete these resources. Okay, and then, yeah, we'll delete that. And then I'm just going to go ahead and shut this down. There we go. And I will see you in the next one, okay? Ciao.